Let's talk about periods! And I'm not talking about punctuation. Yup, this one goes out to all the people out there who menstruate. So dudes, feel free to move right along. Or you know what? On second thought, even if you don't menstruate, stick around. You should know what goes on with the other half of the population and understand the unique difficulties we experience. It'll make you a wiser and more well-rounded human. But up to you. So let's talk about it, shall we? Periods, I mean. As in how to have one outdoors. As in how to have one outdoors when you're spending the night outdoors. As in backpacking or climbing or bike packing, etc. Because listen, I get it. It's kind of scary thinking about having to deal with the shedding of your uterine lining far from the comforts of home and the relative cleanliness of a bathroom with a sink and laundry. Also, as much toilet paper as you could possibly want. But even without those things, you can still absolutely enjoy the outdoors while you're on your period. It may just take a little more planning and preparation. Whatever you do, don't think you have to cancel a trip just because it's that time of the month. So I'm gonna break down your options for what tools and implements make menstruating in the outdoors easier, how to leave no trace, and more. So let's get into it. First of all, dealing with your period is a very personal thing. What works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for another. You may hate tampons or be very uncomfortable with a menstrual cup. So remember that all of these items that I mentioned are just options. Pick whichever one works best for you and that you feel most comfortable with and make it work. There's no wrong way to handle it. Let's start with the traditional solutions. Pads and tampons. The options most people are probably most familiar with. Now, I'm not a big fan of these for a couple of reasons. One, it's expensive to keep a steady supply of disposable products on hand at all times. Two, these items take up a ton of space in your bag before and after they're used, and you absolutely have to pack all of it out. So not only do you need plenty of bags in which to dispose of used items, but they're gonna be much heavier on the way out than they were on the way in. Three, they're all single use, meaning they create a lot of waste. The packaging of these items alone adds up to about 400 pounds of landfill waste over a single person's lifetime. And the average person will dispose of a minimum of 5,000 single-use items over the course of their lifetime. That's a lot. In the UK alone, that amounts to 28,114 tons of waste every year. And since a lot of it is made of plastic, it doesn't break down for hundreds of years. Now, there are reusable pads and liners if that's the device you feel most comfortable using. I've had friends who use them and are fans. One of the newest on the market is from one of my favorite brands, Coola. They make reusable antimicrobial pea cloths that I'm obsessed with, and now waterproof antimicrobial liners. These Coola and other brands work via absorption, of course, but then allow you to rinse, wash, dry, and reuse. Coola in particular dries super fast, so you're likely to only have to bring a couple with you on longer trips and rotate them, giving each a good wash each time you swap one out, of course. If you'd rather wait until you get home to do that, you can always fold them up, stick them in an opaque bag, and pack them out. Similar to reusable pads, in that they don't require any sort of insertion, are reusable underwear. Now, there are several brands that make super absorbent underwear designed to be worn during your period. Proof is one. Thinx and Salt are others. Many of them are even quite comfortable, to the point where it often doesn't feel like you're wearing any sort of special implement at all. As in, if you hate using pads because of how present they feel, well-designed period underwear doesn't feel like that at all. And depending on how much you bleed, you may just need to bring 1 or 2 pairs per day of your trip because there are options for light and super heavy flows. We actually reviewed Proof underwear a while back, so we'll link to that video below. On the downside, period underwear aren't quite as easy to clean in the backcountry as some of the other options we're talking about here, though you can certainly wash, dry, and reuse them, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. But if you don't want to do that, you will have to pack enough to last the duration of your trip. If you're not going to wash them, again, bring an opaque bag like a duct taped over zip top, small dry bag, or a dark colored silicone bag like a stasher, and when it's time to change your underwear, drop an old pair into the bag, and put a fresh pair on. Then you can just wash the bag when you get home. Now, if you would rather pack fewer pairs and do some backcountry laundry to clean your reusable pads or underwear, whether or not you plan to wear them again on the trip, you must follow leave no trace principles. For starters, make sure you do your washing, especially if there's soap involved, at least 200 feet or 70 paces away from camp or water sources. Then rinse them well, use biodegradable soap to wash, rinse again, wring out as much water as you can, and hang to dry. You will probably want to use filtered and purified or boiled water to do so. After all, these items will be in contact with sensitive areas. But let's move on to one of my favorite devices, the menstrual cup. Now, there are lots of brands of these available, like Moon Cup and Diva Cup, but they all generally do the same thing. They're flexible silicone cups that you insert just like you would a tampon, but instead of absorbing blood, they catch it. You know, like in a cup. Brilliant. There are different sizes available depending on whether or not you've had kids. They're easy to insert and remove, and even easier to empty. Just remove, dump it out, give it a rinse with a little bit of water, and reinsert. Now, these are one of my favorite menstrual devices for a few reasons. One, they're endlessly reusable. Buy it once and it'll last you for years. 10 years. According to some brands, which means you don't have to keep buying feminine hygiene products over and over again every month. Love that. It's way less wasteful and so much cheaper. I mean, one cup costs between $20 and $40, whereas a person will spend about $20 on disposable products per cycle on average, which adds up, you ready for this, to about $18,000 over a lifetime. That's huge! But I also love these because you don't have to pack anything out. You can simply dump out the contents into a cat hole. We'll drop a link to our video on how to go to the bathroom outdoors and what a proper cat hole looks like below. The downside to using one outdoors is that your hands really should be clean if you're going to be inserting items into your body. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you're washing your hands before and after you use one. Same rule applies for tampons. Along those same lines, it can also be a bit messier than using, say, a pad or tampon. Not a lot messier, especially once you get the hang of it, but these are your own bodily fluids here, and as long as you're being clean about it and washing your hands afterwards, there's really nothing you need to be afraid of. Also, no risk of toxic shock syndrome, so that's a major plus. Just bring a few extra wet wipes, or my favorite packed outdoors compressible wipes that expand with just a few drops of water. There are other options, of course, like sponges and menstrual discs, which are kind of like cups but smaller, but they tend to be variations on what we already talked about, so I'm not going to go into those in detail. Then let's move on to what you might want to bring in addition to, the actual menstrual products. Painkillers. Naturally. Don't forget to bring more than you usually would if you tend to suffer from cramping. Then, if you're using disposable products, reusable pads, or period underwear, make sure to bring an opaque bag for packing out your trash. A reusable bag that you can wash when you get home and then reuse the next time you hike during your period is ideal, but a zip top bag will do as well. Next, you'll probably want to bring extra wet wipes. One friend of mine just brought a package of regular old baby wipes when we went backpacking during her period, but those are heavy. So like I said, I prefer to pack some compressed wipes from Packed Outdoors, which weigh practically nothing and take up zero space, but still turn into a 9x9 wet wipe when you add a few drops of water. Honestly, those are my go-to for backpacking any time of the month. Honestly, I bring them entirely instead of toilet paper. Combined with packed mycelium tabs, when dropped in a cat hole, they compost super fast. You can also use a Coola cloth, my favorite antimicrobial and reusable pee cloth. The fabric is black, so blood doesn't show up, and you can wash it out as often as you need to, and then reuse endlessly. Heck, you could even get it damp and use it as a wet wipe. It is just for liquid waste areas though, so keep that in mind. But there's one more important thing we need to discuss, and that's how to dispose of period products and blood. First things first, check the rules and regulations of the area you're recreating in to see if you're allowed to dig cat holes. If you are, you can dump the contents of menstrual cups and the like in a hole 6 to 8 inches deep and cover it all back up. If you're not allowed to dig cat holes, you gotta pack everything out. Yup, everything. Wipes, single-use products, some locations may even request that you pack out blood when using a cup, though honestly, I haven't seen this anywhere. But it could be the case in places where you can't dig a cat hole, like the desert. If you're unsure, at least give the area where you dumped your cup a good rinse before you leave. Remember, the goal is to leave no trace that you were ever there. If you do have to pack everything out, consider putting duct tape for privacy around a sealable container like a Gatorade bottle or a repurposed food container with a screw-on lid like those plastic gelato containers. And remember, if you're doing any rinsing or washing of any of these products, use filtered and purified or boiled water only. If you wouldn't drink it, don't put it in or near your bits. Also, because I know you're thinking it, no, you will not attract bears when you're on your period. There is absolutely no science to support that, so you're welcome. You probably should store any used products in a bear canister in bear country though, just in case. Also, if you don't want to deal with any of this, like ever, and you're not trying to get pregnant, I cannot recommend using an IUD highly enough. The hormonal one, not the copper one. Many people who use them don't even get a period anymore. It's awesome. But you do you when it comes to menstruating in the outdoors. Just remember to be prepared. Don't try a brand new period solution for the first time on a backpacking trip, and remember to leave no trace. We'll put links to all the things we mentioned in the description below so you can check them out for yourself, and then, follow us on Insta, Facebook, and Twitter. We're at Terradrift. I promise we don't talk about periods all the time. Then check out even more outdoorsy tips and gear guides on terradrift.com and watch some of these other rad videos. Then wander on. Yes, even if you're on your period.